Jananandana Yamuna Tira Manachari Yamuna Tira Manachari Jairatha Madhava Javihari Jairatha Madhava Javihari Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Chila Prabhupada Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Chila Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jaya Vishnupad Paramahamsa Victoria Shukla Shri Srimad His Divine Grace of Lucy Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jaya Vishnupad Paramahamsa Victoria Shukla Shri Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai Kantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 6, Chapter 11, Text 5. Text 4, Text 5? Which one?
It's 5.
Okay, thanks. Okay. Diva Pradhane Shadha Saramba Shulaka Hridi Agretishtatamatra Nachid Gramya Sukhe Spriha Yadiva Pradhane Shadha Saramba Shulaka Hridi Agretishtatamatra Nachid Gramya Sukhe Spriha Yadiva Pradhane Shadha Saramba Shulaka Hridi Agretishtatamatra Nachid Gramya Sukhe Spriha. Would anyone like to recite the verse?
Yadiva Pradhane Shraddha Saramva Shulaka Hridi Agriti Shtatamatram Me Nachet Gramya Sukhe Spraha.
Thank you, Prabhu. Anyone else?
Yadiva Pradhane Shraddha Saramva Shulaka Hridi Agretistata Matrame Natset Gramya Sukhe Raha.
Thank you, Mother Jamavati. Anyone else?
Yadiva Pradhane Shraddha Sharamva Shukala Hridi Agretistata Matram Me Nasagramya Suke Sraha.
Thank you. I love that little picture. It's so cute, Krishna and Balaram. Okay, word for word. Yadi, if. Va, of you. Pradhane, in battle. Shraddha, faith. Saram, patience. Va, or. Shulaka, O insignificant ones. Hridi, in the core of the heart. Agre, in front. Tishtata, just stand. Matram, for a moment. Me, of me. Na, not. Chet, if. From Misuke, in sense gratification. Spriha, desire. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation: O insignificant demigods, if you truly have faith in your heroism, if you have patience in the cores of your hearts, and if you are not ambitious for sense gratification, please stand before me for a moment. Purport: rebuking the demigods, Vritrasura challenged, O demigods, if you are actually heroes, stand before me now and try to show your prowess. If you do not fight, if you do not wish to fight, if you are afraid of losing your lives, I shall not kill you, for unlike you, I am not so evil-minded as to kill persons who are neither heroic nor willing to fight. If you have faith in your heroism, please stand before me. Translation again, O insignificant demigods, if you truly have faith in your heroism, if you have patience in the cores of your hearts, and if you are not ambitious for sense gratification, please stand before me for a moment. Om Ganatimanandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshar Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruvaya Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sadi Gaura Bhaktavranda. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So good morning, devotees. Nice to have quite a few people on the call. So I think pretty much everybody that's been giving Bhagavatam class, and I think most of you have been attending most of the Bhagavatam classes, has been going over what's happening in this pastime. So I probably won't do so much of that today because I think Kalaswarup went over it and Madhupan Leela went over it in quite a lot of detail the other day. So if you missed those, you can go back on YouTube and hopefully they're recorded. But what I wanted to focus on today is this verse reminded me, or what stuck out was about having patience in the cores of one's heart and if they're not ambitious for sense gratification. So basically Vritrasura is instructing the demigods in an interesting way. Like right now he's saying such truths, although it sounds like it's coming off as like an insult. But what he's saying is actually really deep and can also be applied to our bhakti, you know, that basically if we have faith, not in our own heroism, but in the supremacy and control and enjoyment and love of Krishna, if we have patience in the cores of our hearts, and if we're not ambitious for sense gratification, then we can become steady in our devotional service. So it was reminding me of the verse in the Nectar of Instruction, verse 3. Some of you may know by heart, but I will read it out. Utsahan nishchaya tarya tat tat karma pravartana sanga tyagat sato vrite shadpir bhakti prasidhyati. So, okay, does anybody know, without pulling up that verse, what the 6 things favorable for the execution of pure devotional service are? Make it a little bit interactive. Does anybody know the first 3?
Is it like Shravanam, Kirtanam? Is it that?
There, that is number 4. Acting according to regulative principles such as Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam. Hearing, chanting, and remembering Krishna. Jai, you got the more difficult one, I guess, so to speak. Hey, you remember any more?
You're asking for the first three items.
Or you could go, well, why said number 4, but you can say the other 5 if you remember them off the top of your head.
We're talking about the 6 principles favorable to devotional service.
Yes.
So the first one is being enthusiastic. The second one is endeavoring with confidence.
Mm-hmm.
The third is patience, as is described in today's verse. You mentioned 4, acting according to regulative principles. And 5 is abandoning the association of non-devotees. 6 is following in the footsteps of the previous acharyas.
Hi. That was like verbatim exactly how the verse is, how the verse words each one as well. Because usually, the first 3 we say, or I guess I've just become accustomed to saying enthusiasm, patience, and determination. But the
Yeah,
translation, endeavoring
I
with
used
confidence.
to have the verse memorized, but it's been a long time since I've
That was
recited.
that was perfect. So thank you, Prabhu. So yeah, this is and Prabhu had said number 3 is being patient. So that's what stuck out for me today that reminded me in today's verse that reminded me of this verse from Nectar of Instruction. So yeah, a lot of times, people give classes and focus on these first 3, and then I've heard the point made that, the first thing is to be enthusiastic, because if you're not enthusiastic about taking the process of bhakti or devotional service, then it's very difficult to be patient, wait for the fruits of something. It's very difficult to be determined, right? Like if we're not enthusiastic to do something, then chances are unless we're like extremely duty conscious, then there's not going to be steady determination either. So it's all linked together. But anyway, I'll just reread the translation and then we can go into the purport. So translation, even though Tarka Prabhu pretty much said it from memory. There are 6 principles favorable to the execution of pure devotional service. 1, being enthusiastic. 2, endeavoring with confidence. 3, being patient. 4, acting according to regulative principles such as Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, hearing, chanting, and remembering Krishna. 5, abandoning the association of non-devotees, and 6, following in the footsteps of the previous acharyas. These 6 principles undoubtedly assure the complete success of pure devotional service. So there was a part of the purport that I'd like to read as well. Okay, let's go through it piece by piece. Purport. Devotional service is not a matter of sentimental speculation or imaginative ecstasy. Its substance is practical activity. Srila Rupa Goswami in his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu has defined devotional service as follows. Anyavilashita shunyam jnana karmane navritam anakulyena krishnanu shilanam bhaktir uttama. Uttama bhakti, or unalloyed devotion unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead Sri Krishna, involves the rendering of devotional service in a way that is favorable to the Lord. This devotional service should be free from any extraneous motive and devoid of fruit of karma, impersonal jnana, and all other selfish desires. Bhakti is a sort of cultivation. As soon as we say cultivation, we must refer to activity. Cultivation of spirituality does not mean sitting down idly for meditation, as some pseudo-yogis teach. Such idle meditation may be good for those who have no information of devotional service, and for this reason it is sometimes recommended as a way to check distracting materialistic activities. Meditation means stopping all nonsensical activities, at least for the time being. Devotional service, however, not only puts an end to all nonsensical mundane activities, but also engages one in meaningful devotional activities. And then Prabhupada goes on to list the 9 processes of devotional service, and it says Shravanam, or hearing, is the first step in acquiring transcendental knowledge. So, yeah, it's a wonderful purport. Of course, as most of the purports in Nectar of Instruction do, they go quite in depth, and there's a lot of paragraphs. But I'll just read this last one about enthusiasm. One should accept this opportunity to return home back to Godhead very enthusiastically. Without enthusiasm, one cannot be successful. Even in the material world, one has to be very enthusiastic in his particular field of activity in order to become successful. A student, businessman, artist, or anyone else who wants success in his line must be enthusiastic. Similarly, one has to be very enthusiastic in devotional service. Enthusiasm means action, but action for whom? The answer is that one should always act for Krishna. Krishnar Takila Cheshta. So, yeah, there's a lot. I mean, practically every paragraph of the purport is like you could just give a whole class on, even one sentence you could give a whole class on. But I have been really thinking about this point and hearing a lot of lectures on about chanting and determination in chanting, and how bhakti is an experiential process. It's not just like theoretical, and as soon as we make it theoretical, like, oh yeah, I've been a devotee for a while, so that means that, you know, I just believe in Krishna, and my chanting might be good one day and it might not be good another day, or another day, another day, another day. It might not be very good or just mechanical. But, you know, we get into bhakti, we get out of bhakti what we put in. So, for example, I was hearing this lecture and Devamrita Maharaj was talking about how, you know, when it comes to our chanting, Krishna is a person. Krishna is there. So imagine if, you know, you're in you have a friend or in a relationship with somebody and they only talk to you when they're doing other things. They're like trying to, okay, let me, you know, browse the internet and try to talk to you at the same time. Let me, you know, tidy up the house and let me try to talk to you at the same time. Or they say to you, I'll talk to you later while I'm driving. And the devotees got such a kick out of that, like driving japa. So yeah, we would feel not so good, you know, like, oh, this person, you know, doesn't value me enough to just take like undeviating quality time with me. So in the same way, you know, for Krishna, with Krishna, Krishna is a person. So Krishna appreciates when we set aside the best part of our day for him, and we make all arrangements. Like, imagine again, if you have a friend or family member or partner, and they're like, oh, you know, this room that we're in now is just too distracting. I really want to hear what you have to say. And so then you make arrangements within that quality time as well. Okay, where are we going to sit? Where can we go that, you know, is quiet and the room is conducive for like a real heart to heart kind of conversation. Even like setting, you know, the atmosphere, things like that. Well, that's really like, yeah, taking it to, I mean, if somebody were to do that for you, like they're like, I made all these arrangements just so that I can really hear what you have to say because I really value it. Man, their heart would like totally melt, right? Everybody wants to be heard and understood and listened to. So yeah, in the same way, it's so, at least for myself, it's so easy to forget that Krishna is a person. Everything that we, you know, would melt our hearts or we want for ourselves, we should be prepared to, or at least have the desire to be able to give that to Krishna and have the and pray to Krishna for the intelligence oh man, my japa has just been not where I want it to be. So please, Krishna, please give me intelligence how I can arrange my life, arrange things in such a way, or arrange my time, arrange the place that I can actually very deeply connect with you. Or my mind's all over the place. So how can I arrange other aspects of my life, whether it's how the quality of sleep I'm getting, how I'm eating, how I'm interacting with anybody in this world. Prabhupada said, one should even respect the ant, just so that I'm able to connect with you with an open heart and an open ears. So yeah, I heard again in a lecture something that I've heard so many times is that Prabhupada would say, once is it Prabhupada or is it Bhaktivinoda Thakur? I mean, Prabhupada said it too, but I'm trying to think if it was originally from Bhaktivinoda Thakur that was explaining how if one, um, chants attentively, then all the other offenses can be easily avoided. So, one shouldn't offend devotees like this and that. But if we really put like I was saying in a previous class, oh man, there's so many things to seemingly worry about in bhakti or be concerned with or try to regulate or try to keep a lid on or, like can't do this, I can't do that. It's like, okay, if we can just boil it down to like put your mental energy and concern into one or a few things. This is one that just covers all other categories. Is if you really try, and myself try to chant attentively, then everything else gets mystically sorted out. And I was, yeah, again, I've been listening to these lectures about chanting. And in, I think, the first lecture from the Recharge Festival in New Zealand that Devamarita Maharaj has every year, wonderful lectures, like, I mean, every year, but this year, so good. He's just covering so many different topics. And in the class, he was explaining the dynamics. If you haven't listened yet, I definitely recommend them. He was breaking down the dynamics of how chanting attentively actually gives one more time. So I had heard that before, like as a new devotee, you thinking, oh my gosh, how will I ever chant 16 rounds? I can't, trying to squeeze one into my day felt like such a mission. And now you're saying that you guys chant 16 rounds and that like I'm trying to work my way up to that. Impossible. But then you find, as you do it, as you apply it, then mystically, magically, things just really open up and time just seems to open up and you're like, how did I end up fitting that in my day? But you have a decrease, in material desires. Yeah, so many superfluous things just fall away. So I had heard this before and specifically related to the point of newer devotees, that most of us have that experience. But then Maharaj was breaking it down and then applying it even as all devotees, at any stage or however much amount of time you've been practicing, that whenever we chant attentively, actually all we spend so much mental energy, if we're not chanting attentively, going into making arrangements for our material desires, contemplating material desires, or just like, oh, my energy has to go here, my energy has to go there, I have to do this, I have to do that, I have to. And this takes up so much energy actually, and just so much headspace. But whenever we chant with attention, then time just actually starts to open up. We start to have more and more time because uh, we're opening up that space for Krishna, and then we're getting cleansed of all these superfluous things. I mean, I remember having that experience, like I said, most people do, as a uh, newer than I am now devotee. Uh, that I think before coming to Bhakti, I was definitely spending a lot of time on social media. And then after chanting, the habit just kind of like started to dissolve. And I really didn't even notice. And then one day I was like, wow, I don't even, maybe I like go on Instagram for like 10 minutes or I don't even have that desire or time to do that at all, really. But I was thinking, I'm like, even when we don't have time materially, like let's say we're working all the time, you still find time to do like sense gratification, like yeah, sense gratification like that, scrolling on social media or uh yeah, partying, whatever sense gratification you might think of. That's just like mode of ignorance. It's not even mode of passion. We always find time. But anyway, even as a devotee, I probably could have snuck it in here and there or found time. But because I was trying to chant sincerely and really hear the mantra, that desire just started to melt away and I didn't even realize it. Or my desire, my need for, connection that I'm looking for through this phone is actually being met by connecting to Krishna, having genuine, deep relationships based on the spiritual platform with devotees. So this is just one example, and I was after hearing this lecture, I was thinking about it, I'm like, actually, I do have experience, and I should use my prior experience to inspire me to apply more seriousness in chanting now as well. Because imagine, so many things that, so many ways that I might not be using my time properly, or worrying or contemplating how am I gonna make this arrangement for my life, that arrangement, especially, if you're in like a transition period. So whether that's changing houses, changing ashrams, changing jobs, uh, you have kids that are constantly changing, even if you're not changing, or changing services, whatever, that, the mind can fill up with so many concerns, and I have to do it. I have to make plans. I have to make arrangements. And of course, use, uh, we should use our intelligence to make plans for how to have a life, a full, long life in bhakti. At the same time, ultimately, if we're trying to practice bhakti from the very beginning, even of our bhakti, Krishna is actually taking personal care of us. So, it's kind of it's pretty naive, and I mean it's just outright stupid actually to for the child, let's say, or us, Krishna's uh dependents, so to speak, to just be like, I have to make all these plans. It's like a 5-year-old, I have to worry about how am I gonna pay my taxes this year or pay the family taxes this year, and I have to make this arrangement and make that arrangement, and who's gonna cook dinner and this and that. And it's like, why are you even worried about that? The parents got it taken care of. And it's really up to us to just align ourselves with the desire of the parent, and then we'll be taken care of. So in the same way in bhakti, we can get a bit caught up and I have to do this, and then it can even take over, consume our headspace while we're chanting as well. But then if we just realize like, wow, actually I've been taken care of. First of all, there's no evidence that I have not been taken care of in bhakti thus far, but the mind wants to make us feel like, yeah, there's no evidence to support that you're going to be taken care of, even though it's been happening for however many years we've been practicing. And then, secondly, yeah, it's just naive for the child to try to operate separately from the parent and make all these arrangements when it's just like, well, if you just align yourself with the parent, um, if you just focus on, your loving exchanges with the parent, then actually you'll be taken care of. So just a good reminder for myself. And then, so yes, Maharaj was making this point about how time really opens up whenever we just focus on our chanting. And this is especially Gita Nagari, and I mean, probably a lot of places in devotional service, because you're really blessed if your life is just saturated with so much devotional service that you're like, I'm drowning. But whether at Gita Nagari or maybe those working a job somewhere, state college or wherever, raising a family, have also felt like this, going to school and practicing bhakti simultaneously. I've felt this sense of overwhelm as well. Oh my gosh, there's so much to do, there's not enough time. And so then the mind is very sneaky and slippery, and likes to just squeak in wherever I can. It's like, oh, you know what would be really efficient is if you think about all these things you need to do during your japa. And actually, I'm not going to tell you this, but you're not really going to arrive at a meaningful solution. But if you ruminate about it enough, then it might just resolve itself. So the mind tries to tell us that, but actually it's not true, and it really like wastes a lot of energy and well, time as well. Time that could have been spent, with Krishna, who will take care of us. So yeah, the mind tries to get into japa like that as well, but it's really just an illusion, actually. And I would say, I mean, at least for myself, I've heard other devotees, as well, maybe struggling with the same thing or asking, how do we not think about, our service that we're going to do for that day during our japa? And it's better than thinking about, the cinema, but also Maya is so subtle that one of the sitting places is the mind, and so she'll get in there, start to talk like a devotee, have the mind start to, I mean, she is a devotee, but then have the mind start to adopt the language of a devotee, have the mind start to, like whenever somebody puts on those, those glasses that have like the mustache on them, like the little disguise glasses, it's like the mind puts on those and it's like a fake, it's like a fake T-lock mark, and she puts on a little fake Sika, and I guess I made the mind a she, but the mind puts on a little fake Sika, fake T-lock. It's like, oh yeah, what'd be really good for Krishna's service is if the whole time during your japa, you're thinking about what you need to do today and how you need to make plans for your devotional service. And then that way it can distract us from just hearing Krishna's holy name. So don't fall for it. I'm trying to not fall for it. But yeah, along with chanting, of course, comes so much speaking about the mind, which I've also been thinking about. I've been trying this thing, or what works for me is, you hear so many devotees talk about how, or I guess people that meditate in general, talking about how the mind, you should treat it like a child, or like Dhruva always says in class, the mind is like what is it, like a monkey being attacked by a swarm of bees or something crazy like that, and chased by a snake or something. And so you can think of the mind how you like to know that it's just different from you. But I've been thinking about what if I had like a handbag and my mind's just in there? I mean, to me, it looks like a brain, but the mind just uses the brain. They're two separate things. Anyway, I just have it in like this handbag on my side and has the mind in there. And basically it just helps us to realize that we're not the mind, whatever imagery you want to think of that keeps you separate from it. But I'm just thinking, I'm like, man, I got this mind with me. I've been carrying around this handbag with my mind in it for like so many lifetimes, and I'm carrying it around with me now, and it's always yapping something like, oh, actually, Philip Joppa, like this morning, was like, it would be so nice right now is one of Ken's bagels. And I'm just like, at first, it's just like, oh, yeah, if you think that the mind is you and the mind is inside your head, then it's like, yeah, that's so true. That's exactly what we need right now. It's like, this is, I'm getting a little bit bored. I'm a little bit sleepy. It's pretty warm in here. So what would be a really good pick me up and what would help my japa is if I go all the way to the Welcome Center, get a old bagel and eat it. But actually, once I was just like, then I had this flash. I'm like, oh, my mind, like I was hearing in this lecture that my mind is separate from me. So I just have my mind in this handbag right now. And this mind is saying something. And I'm just like, calm down, like we'll take a nap later. We'll get you fed later. But right now, it's time for japa. So then, continue to chant my rounds. And then it just helps so much. So it's just like anytime the mind was like, and you need to do this, and it's just like, shh, yeah, yes, I have you on my arm right now. And I know that I'm like destined to carry you with me throughout at least the rest of this life. but I'm the one calling the shots here, and it just helped. So anyway, whatever, I know that that's not really a example that I got from Shastra of how to think of the mind, but the principle is there that by chanting Hare Krishna, we can get a real experience that we're different from the mind. Or if we're feeling like, oh my gosh, right now my mind is bothering me and it wants to take me away from my chanting, then we can flip the order and then just think, okay, my mind is separate from me. Therefore, I should keep chanting. So they just flow into each other. Anyway, let me see. I had this other point. I had one last point about chanting that I was hearing from this lecture is about the three stages of chanting. And I'm trying to remember the first one. Okay, so first stage of chanting, and I don't remember where David Mitamraj was getting this from, or if it was like a kind of a summary of different things, that he's heard from Prabhupada and read, or maybe he says it in the lecture and I just forgot. But basically the first stage of chanting, we're just wanting that relief from suffering, relief from miseries. And then the second stage of chanting, or understanding chanting, is that we're chanting, and like Prabhupada said, here is Radha, here is Krishna. So we're realizing, oh, I'm trying to be personally present with Krishna right now, Krishna and Radha. Yeah, and just wanting to soak up their association and not thinking, not anything. It's just like, I just want to spend quality time with this person. And then third stage of chanting is that one realizes their swarup. So they start, well, the way he said it was they start to become very inspired on exactly how how they're meant to serve Krishna, following in the footsteps of a specific resident of Vrindavan. So he's explaining this, and is just like, wow, this is definitely far down the line. Although it's nice, we should always hear what we're aspiring for, what we're working towards, even though we can't even like fathom it, or at least I can't. But following in the footsteps of one of the gopis or the gopas, Krishna's parents, wanting to serve like them, not become them, but serve like them, follow in their footsteps. So yeah, hearing about the goal helps us develop all these three things that we read about today in the Nectar of Instruction. So enthusiasm, endeavoring with confidence, and being patient. So I'm just going to remember this today. Number 2 is endeavoring with confidence. That has for me, it has such a different, it's like different connotations than just determination. Determination has one, it's like I'm fixed and I'm like kind of like headstrong. Endeavoring with confidence is like it's packed with knowledge, actually. So we read about, you can read about in Krishna book, so many examples, right? I mean, Krishna book is just example after example. So is Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita. Example after example of Krishna coming through for his devotees. I mean, there's Prahlad Maharaj in the Bhagavatam. There's in the Krishna book, there's Krishna saving them from the forest fire. There's Krishna, after subduing Kaliya, then he's like seemingly coming back to life, or he's coming out of that scene, and then the residents of Vrindavan are coming back to life. Let me think of some other examples. I mean, I was just telling a devotee who hasn't read it yet, the whole pastime of Sudama Brahmana. Just so many examples of Krishna just really like, coming through for his devotees. There's never a time when Krishna like fails his devotees. If we put material conditions and circumstances on it, Krishna, why did I break my leg? I thought you were supposed to protect me. then we're not going to be able to see Krishna pulling through for us. But as Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, you know, my devotee is never vanquished. So what does that mean? Materially? No. That means spiritually, the devotee is never vanquished. No devotional service ever goes in vain. Krishna will always reciprocate with us 10 times more than, you know, than we ever imagined. And if we're open to it, then in ways that we never imagined. So our responsibility is, you know, just don't limit Krishna. We can desire, you know, Krishna, I really want this. I want to come closer to you, or I want to be able to do some service for you. But the way in which that manifests, if we're open, Krishna can do some really incredible stuff. So I've also been thinking about that and actually like realizing that and having that experience lately where I'm like, wow, we're just a little bit, even, you know, 2 inches more open to how Krishna wants to achieve uh, something even that we're desiring for him, then it becomes quite fun and interesting and exciting and amazing. Like, wow, Krishna actually, you know, now that I think of it, Krishna seems like he has an even bigger brain than I do. Krishna seems like he's even more intelligent than I am and has more ideas than I do about how to accomplish something. Imagine that. So, okay, I'm going to stop here. Does anybody have comments or yeah, reflections? Be nice to hear. Maybe about, well, about whatever you want. I've been relishing hearing about chanting lately.
Hare Krishna. Wonderful class. I loved all your analogies of the mind because, yeah, it does creep in many, many different ways. So even being able to have that vocabulary to say, okay, it might look like this too, and that is still something that we can look for and guard against to really focus on the holy name. But I wanted to ask, you were saying the mind is one of the seats of Maya. Can you explain like the seats of Maya? Like, is it, if the mind is one of them, what are the other ones?
Oh yeah, that's in Bhagavad Gita. It's the sitting places of lust, right? So it's the mind and does anybody, the mind and senses, what are the other ones, devotees? It's not is it the intelligence?
Yes, it is the intelligence, mind, the intelligence, the mind, the senses.
Okay, those three. Do you remember what chapter that's in, or even what verse that is?
Chapter 3.
Okay. Yep,
It's
that's a good. Yeah, you can go on, Prabhu. Sorry to
I
cut.
was it's one of the latter verses. I don't remember exactly which one it is. It's like I I don't know exactly.
Do you have Tarika Prabhu? Can you give a little bit of an elaboration on how, um, yeah, how Maya or AKA lust, sits in those three places specifically?
Oh, um, I I think about it regularly. I'm still trying to understand precisely how that is. I experience practically how lust it manifests in these different places. How that is beyond my capacity, but Krishna states it, and practically I can see it. Um, you know, I think everyone can feel the experience of um, some sort of desire arising um, from our mind and also our senses and it affects our intelligence also. We under the spell of Maya, we will engage our intelligence in um, trying to exploit the material nature in some way or other for our enjoyment. So the endeavor for sense gratification is if we're trying to enjoy our senses, there will also be the accompaniment of the intelligence, at least usually the mind, the intelligence, everything comes together at once. But you will engage your intelligence in how precisely to execute the act of sense gratification. Anyway, that's some of my realization of it. That at least with regards to the manifestation in intelligence.
Thank you, Guru. Lila Kishore.
Hare Krishna, thank you for a wonderful class. Really, really. I see that Agari Krishna put in the text in the chat, but it's actually Bhagavad Gita 3:38 to 41. And like just paraphrasing, it's just saying that like as fire is covered by smoke, a mirror covered by dust, or the embryo covered by the womb, the living entity is similarly covered by different degrees of lust. And it goes on to say, like you said, that the senses, the mind, and the intelligence are the sitting places of this lust. And through them, lust covers the real knowledge of the living entity and bewilders him. And then in 41, Krishna says to Arjuna, therefore, O Arjuna, best of the bards, in the very beginning, curb this great symbol of sin, lust, by regulating the senses and slay this destroyer of knowledge and self-realization. So it does go back to the regulative principles and like sort of getting out in front of it, I guess. And I love what your strategy was about the mind, like having it in the bag and kind of saying, wait a minute. And I use like a 10-minute rule with that because it happens all the time. And so it'll come up and then I'll say, okay, in 10 minutes, you can have the donut. But right now, we're chanting. We're chanting for 10 more minutes. And then if it, by then, usually it's going, but if it comes back, I'm like, you know what? In 10 more minutes, you can like go look at that thing that, you know, is on your calendar. But right now, we're chanting. And in 10 more minutes, I'll let you look at the calendar on the phone. So it's just, again, like you said, it's sort of like delaying that gratification, acknowledging that I'm seeking some kind of sense gratification, and then just delaying it. And I also loved how you talked about, would you want someone to talk to you while they're like cleaning the house? And it's one of the things I really don't like. Like if a friend of mine is like, oh, let me call you back when I'm driving. It's like, no, let's talk later. Because if you're driving, you're really not going to be able to concentrate. And so to really realize like Krishna is a person, and like, how about treat Krishna with so much more respect because he's the supreme person. So thank you so much for your class.
Thank you. Those are wonderful reflections. I also was thinking about that this morning about there were times or periods of time that I would make it through my chanting just by repeatedly telling my mind, like, well, yeah, well, just 2 more rounds. I promise, just 2 more rounds. And then you just keep doing that after. You're like, well, I mean, we made it this far. We might as well just like, we only have 4 more left. So anyway, that's a nice reminder, like add it to the list of tactics to use with the mind, like a kid. Um, Mother Jambavati.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much for a most wonderful, refreshing class in terms of how we look at chanting and the dynamics of chanting. And I wanted to thank Leela Kishore about her, about talking about driving, because I know a lot of times, and I'm guilty too, try to chant when you're driving. And I remember once somebody mentioned in front of Chandramali Maharaj that they would, finish their rounds while they were driving. And Chandramali Swami said, oh no, those rounds don't count. So I'm like, oh boy. But anyway, yes, thank you for, talking about the importance of, staying true to our chanting, and that we are having a conversation with Krishna. And like Leela Kishore said, it's very annoying and frustrating when you're trying to have a conversation with someone and you're trying to be present and they're, doing other things or giving their attention, somewhere else, while you're chanting. And you also put a name to, I think, I don't experience so much, but I'm sure a lot of people do when they're chanting, is there's so many different phenomena that happen. But you talked about the fact that Demervit Maharaj was talking about, how time mystically opens up when you do what you're supposed to do, when you're supposed to do it. And I think it is mystical, it's very, very mystical. And I just love your metaphors, of the mind in a bag. I think a lot of the ladies online can, I really identify with that. Yes, thank you so much for a very refreshing, thought-provoking class and a different framework with which to look at chanting, And I would like to ask you, if I may, where can we hear this lecture that David Maharaj gave on the dynamics of chanting?
Hare Krishna, yeah, I can just post it in the chat now, but I think it's like Devamrita Swami Media on YouTube, and it should be one of the first ones that come up. It was the Recharge Festival Day 1. Yeah, there's
Did you
day
say
1. Yeah, I can send it.
reach festival?
Recharge Festival Day 1. Please post link for the class and connections. Okay, I can post it on the connections group after this, if that's okay,
Great,
Ramajamba.
great.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for your reflections too, and now based on Kishori's reflections and your reflections just about this point about quality time, I'm thinking how just it's really striking me now. I'm like, how meaningful would it be if somebody said, I want, I've been making this sacred space so that I can really just listen to you. Imagine if somebody did that for you. And they're like, so that I have time and I can just listen to you every day in this sacred space that I've created and sacred time. It'd be like, man, I feel like anybody would be over the moon about that. Men, women, whoever. Um, okay, Taraka Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, I really appreciate your class. So many really nice points, um, helpful, practical, actionable points. Um, Chanting attentively is so critical. It's so important. Otherwise, our chanting is offensive, and the effect is minimized seriously. But there's another example given of inattentive chanting. That when you chant Hare Krishna, you are inviting the Lord you're inviting the Lord into your heart, just as you might invite a guest into your home. And when you invite a guest into your home, or even uninvited, if a guest is in your home, you drop everything, you give them your complete attention. To do otherwise is rude and offensive to your guest. At least in Vedic culture, the system is that you give all attention to your guest. And so, and the same etiquette applies when we receive Krishna as our guest. It's rude. It's offensive to not pay attention to your guest whom you have invited. What would it? How would an individual feel if if I invite you into my home and then once there, I pay no attention to you. I'm busy with everything else, and not really attentive to you. So that anyway, there's that example. But I'll be honest with you that the course of my life has been such that trying trying to find time and an appropriate place to chant with attention has been exceedingly difficult. Just early in my household life, when I had to work to support my family, and I still have to work, but um, I worked a particular job that was extremely demanding. 18 hours a day, 18 hours a day, 6 days a week, and with a 3.5 hour commute. So if you do the math, there isn't time for sleeping, right? There's practically no time left for sleeping. So I had no choice but to chant my rounds while driving. But by Krishna's arrangement, the my commute time became, my sacred time, and the driver's seat became my sacred place. And I chanted incredibly wonderful and attentive rounds. I don't recommend this for anybody. Please don't try this. But what I chanted incredible rounds. They were ecstatic, and I had some peculiar experiences. Sometimes my coworkers would pass me and see me frantically chanting as I was driving, but I never got into an accident, remarkably. But anyway, what works for me um, mostly is I have to rise very early. Um, to finish 16 attentive rounds, I have to start chanting by 1 a.m. or my rounds will be terrible, and I'll really struggle to try to get them done. But that's just me. Thank you again, Hare Krishna. Jai Shri Shri Radha Damodar.
Can I just say, Tarka Prabhu, the other point that Chandramauli Maharaj made, and you almost illustrated it just now, is that you don't want to risk going into samadhi while you're driving and chanting because it could cause an accident.
Yeah, it's dangerous, and but I'll tell you, I would my chanting was so ecstatic, I would be chanting sometimes for quite a while with my eyes closed on a crowded highway, and I just couldn't help it, and somehow or other everything was okay. I fully believe that somehow or other Krishna made adjustments for me because I had no choice. But as I say, I nobody should try to do that. Hare Krishna.